adapting European legislation to new technologies to combat child sexual abuse. This is the thrust of the text adopted by the European Parliament on Tuesday. For MEPs, this update is essential to meet the challenges posed by artificial intelligence, stresses the rapporteur of the text.
Child sexual abuse material generated by AI will be treated in exactly the same way as real child sexual abuse material. We will have a criminalization of the production of it, of the viewing of it, of the creation of the tools to make it. All this will be treated in exactly the same way as if it were real child sexual abuse material, because we know that these models, first of all, they need to train on real child sexual abuse material. And secondly, we see that using AI child sexual abuse material is a very small step to actually moving on to real child sexual abuse.
To underline the scale of the online phenomenon, the MEP refers to data from the US National Center on Missing and Exploited Children. 1 million reports of online sexual abuse were recorded in 2010. 13 years later, the center had recorded 36 million reports. MEPs are also proposing to toughen penalties for this crime. They also want to abolish the statute of limitations.
We noticed that for many victims of child abuse, only at a later stage in life, they will be ready to, for instance, file charges against their abusers. And in many member states, we already see that by the time these victims are ready to do so, the time has run out and they can't get justice anymore. And the Parliament today will send a clear signal that for us, for victims of child sexual abuse, justice cannot simply run out on a deadline. They will always be able to get justice done.
This vote is only the first step. Discussions must now take place with the Council, the institution representing the Member States. The text rapporteur hopes that the 27 ministers will adopt the same ambition as the MEPs.
You never really set out to be the first in anything, and we certainly weren't aware that it would be the first Nigerian film in selection. I think there's been Nigerian film to Cannes before, but obviously not in selection. So the experience was pretty overwhelming, but like in the best way. I think it's incredible to show work in a place that's full of cinephiles, people who sort of love the craft, and a place that has like such massive prestige. It being the first Nigerian film being in Cannes, Nigerians have really sort of like caught on to that, and representing Nigeria to me is like a real badge of honor. I'm extremely proud to be Nigerian, proud to be African in general, and I think that our stories are incredibly universal, but I think there's probably become an increasing market for us, for nuanced versions of our stories to travel across the world, basically.
You know what? Go and wear your clothes. You are following me to Lagos today.
But Mommy said we shouldn't leave the house. That we should wait for her. And why don't you stay and wait for her? You can tell her I went with Daddy to Lagos, but she puts you in charge.
Hopefully, your mommy comes back before we go. But otherwise, we just have to leave a message for her. Go now. Sharp, sharp. I don't have time.
My Father's Shadow is a film about fatherhood, it's about nationhood, it's about brotherhood. It's these two brothers spending the gift of the day with their father, who they don't regularly see. He takes them around Lagos to see the sort of struggles that he has to go through to provide for his family. They question his sort of absence and hold him to account. But on that given day that they're spending together, there is a big election result that gets announced and he has to get them back home. I was in Nigeria during that period, and so was my brother, and we evidently knew that something was going on from the responses of like my mother and uncles and other family. You know, we're probably a bit too young to understand the politics of it at the time, but I think in our research we realized that it was quite a pivotal moment, informative moment in the country's history, something that maybe hasn't particularly been well documented, maybe up until now, and also just like a really important story to sort of tell, because Nigeria, I think, has a big part to play in the sort of growth and development of Africa in general, and even the world in general. And I think, you know, to a certain extent, it hasn't quite fulfilled that potential yet. It's had, you know, like shimmering moments of being able to do that. But I think in order to really sort of shift the dial and move things forward, we have to be able to tell our own stories in a way that's nuanced for us, as opposed to like an outside perspective. So I think 1993 holds a lot in terms of contemporary Nigerian history, and I think it's important to know what happened and who was around in that period, for sure.
Why are you taking that? All your business.
I shoot a lot on film. I love the pace of shooting on film. I love the imperfections of shooting on film. I think it's a very generous way to work making a film, because you get to spend more time with your cast and crew and you get to rehearse. 2 of my 3 leads had never been in a film before, and I didn't want to put them in an environment where we can nitpick their performance. It was challenging, to say the least, because there's no labs on the continent, so we had to do like a shuttle of things going back and forth, so we wouldn't see the rushes for almost a week, so we couldn't strike sets for a week. But thematically, we were shooting a period film, so shooting on film really helped. But politically, I'd probably say I wanted to see the Lagos I grew up in on the most beautiful medium, in my opinion. And I don't think I had been exposed to a lot of that in my youth. So in as much as possible, when I shoot in Nigeria, I want to shoot on film, because I think Nigeria and Lagos is incredibly cinematic, and it deserves to be on celluloid.
Yes, Daddy!
Hopefully my Father Shadow is like breaking ground for a next generation of filmmakers to see that it's possible to do it. You know, obviously, like, I come with a certain level of privilege. I was born in the UK. My film's financed in the UK predominantly, but obviously co-produced by a Nigerian production company, Nigerian talent, Nigerian crew. So there's a lot of collaboration in there. But obviously, you know, I have to also say that it comes with a certain level of privilege. You know, having Mubi, Element, Match Factory, Fremantle, BBC, BFI all involved. You know, that might not be the case for every filmmaker, but I think, you know, I want to acknowledge that and say that there is a way to sort of get to this point, but obviously it takes a lot of collaboration, a lot of forward thinking, and a lot of groundwork. I think Nollywood is like incredibly rich. It's got a beautiful tapestry in terms of storytelling, in terms of creative, in terms of technical prowess, crews and actors. And it's something I wear even more as a badge of honor in terms of representing, because I think it's also a young, fledgling industry. Maybe now there's a commercial necessity in Nollywood, but hopefully films like mine start to branch out to create more space for art house sort of narratives, more dramas, more nuanced dramas. And evidently the audiences are quite interested in that.
Decido qui cu Matila. De ce l-ai chemat aici? Aici să nu mai fii niciodată aici.
Să plece toți! Acum! Să plece toți din casa mea!
Sunt extrem de onorat să fiu în această seară. Fără Enescu, România nu ar fi existat pe harta muzicală.
Am văzut o fotografie. El cu cățelul lui Muțerli în camera de hotel în care a murit singur. Am zis, trebuie să fac un film artistic care să fie dedicat lui George Enescu. Acest copil minune, asemenea lui Mozart, la 5 ani compunea, la 8 ani se ducea să facă conservatorul din Viena. Doar 2 copii în toată istoria conservatorului au fost primiți înainte de vârsta de 8 ani și Enescu este unul dintre ei.
Când am văzut asta, eu lucrând deja la scenariu. Enescu de la București, care acum este unul dintre cele mai mari festivaluri din lume de gen.
La care mă gândeam este Enescu. Îl simțeam așa în spate, ca un dirijor, ce ar spune despre secvențele astea din film. Sau dacă să pun aceste momente în film sau nu.
Când l-am cunoscut pe sfinxul muzicii noastre, a spus că va compune o operă.
Poate că ar fi momentul să oficializăm despărțirea noastră și să divorțăm.
It was sort of my task to paint her an image that the public didn't really know, because history books have not written very kindly of her. So I tried in a way to protect her image and give a different perspective on her life and the love story between her and George Enescu. She was this woman in the shadow of a great genius who was constantly concerned with his music, and he was haunted by his huge work, by his opera.
O operă bună se aude și de pe lumea cealaltă.